Today's field study video, and we're back in the Rossendale Valley near the village of Edenfield, and particularly the little village of Turn. And it basically is just a field study today to lay the way for a more inclusive video and a more thorough video later on. And this is our area of interest, and you can see there's Scout Moor Quarry, and the more discerning will recognise that as Scout Moor Wind Farm. Now, we've all got views on the wind farm, but one thing it is a massive beacon. We can see it for miles upon miles, so when you see that coming down the motorway, this is exactly where we are today. And the reason we've come here today is because a piece of mining history is about to disappear into the quarry. So it's a typical Rossendale Maybank holiday. It's claggy, the clouds are down, it's raining, it's windy, it's blooming miserable. But if we hadn't have gone, we would have had a chance of losing this and not being able to record it. So me and Ronnie's gone across to have a look and get some footage, as I say, as a feeder for another video later on. Now, Scout Moor Colliery is it's very old, and it's easy to think that it's just a little insignificant pit, but it was vital for the local economy. It ran for over 100 years, and the area encompasses really is all along the top of the old quarry line here, right up the hill. There's a major fault runs along there, and then down Cheesden Beck or Cheesden Brook, and then across the bottom and right back round. So it's worked a massive area, and those who know the area will know this old track that comes down here that's called the Old Coal Road. And it's the Old Coal Road for a reason. It brought down coal from parts of Scout Moor Colliery that go right onto this side. Actually, it was known as Higher Hill. Now, we've got a lease going back to 1826 that John Duckworth took out with the Earl of Derby to work collieries in Shuttleworth. Now, I can't say at this time whether he was on Scout Moor, but Scout Moor certainly appears on the 1844 map here. That's where the pit is. And all around this hill, dotted at the same time, are other coal pits and collieries, and they're all part and parcel of what John Duckworth was working at that time. Well, in 1844 it would be Lawrence Duckworth, as we'll explain later. So we're going to have a look at this area all along here. We haven't time to go all the way up today because of the weather. It didn't lend itself. But just another side point for those that know the area well, the top of Whittle Pike, it's an argument whether Whittle Pike or Topple Each is the highest point in the Rossendale Valley. Well, there's a good chance Whittle Pike really should be 2 foot 2 shorter than it is, because all around the perimeter of it, at the top, the lower mountain mine has been worked by the Duckworths. It's just stood on little thin screens of coal, but we'll have a look at that when we do the next video. So I'll show you exactly where we're going today. We're going to have a look from this point. You can see the pit heaps. This is all about to disappear. And then from that drift, we're going to walk here. You can see it again, some old spoil heaps right at the top of the... So we're going to have a look at this pit heap. We've no history on this. Obviously, it must have been part of Duckworth's. You can still see where the drift went in. And then we're going to wander across to this. Now, in the past, people have said it's a wash pool. Well, obviously it is a wash pool, but originally it was Scout Moor Colliery, dating from around about 1860, 1863. Dickinson, the old mines inspector, marks it on, so we'll look at the remains there. Now, we haven't time to continue around the fell, as I said, because of the weather, but I'll show you on the map, and you can see where there was another pit round here. There's quite a few drift ends in here, but it's known as the Shunt End Drift, and if we look on the 1947 map, you can see the rails sticking out. So we're on the 1844 map, and this is the area we're going to be looking at today. It doesn't show much, does it? Just 2 little cabins, and that's it. But look at all the other old coal pits, and down here where it says colliery, that means it's working. Now, I would think that is round about roughly where the drift is that everybody recognises as Scout Moor, where the old tramway goes down towards Newgate. So that was working. It looks like they've worked all the crop edge coal. But what is really interesting, fascinates me from this Scout Moor Colliery here, is this ventilation shaft. And it says ventilator. It doesn't say fan, it doesn't say furnace, it says ventilator. And I think I've found where the shaft is. It's just full of stones now. It's all filled in, but it's a bit of a depression full of stones. But I'd love to know what a ventilator is. And if we come across the hill, up to what, there's Great Lodge at the top. This is Cheesden Brook. And we can see all the other coal pits at the top here that Duckworth worked. Some are marked as colliery. Some you can still see. I think that one you can still see is in the middle of the wind farm. You can still look down the shaft. And certainly some of these other ones are still there as well. So we'll have a look at them better the next time that we're up and we're in the area, and we can do a full video. But many of you will recognise this, the coal road that runs down. Obviously that served the collieries at the time. So it's got a very, very interesting pedigree, hasn't it? And that's what many will recognise as the Scoutmore Colliery today. The old tramway down to Newgate, and there's the powder magazine still stood in the field here. And interestingly, you can see the old tramway that ran to the Turf Moordrift as well. That's where the Turf Moordrift was. So that's what a lot of people remember as Scoutmore, but it was much, much bigger than that. And this is the 1947 map. You can see again the incline going up to the colliery, which is now marked as disused. All quarried away, sadly, but we do have some older photos. But if you look across the clough, where the quarry is, can you see these rails coming out? Yeah, because that was a drift into the pit there. You can still see that, and you can still see the remains of this cabin. So I'll show you exactly where we're going to walk today. So again, this is a 1947 map. The modern quarry comes up to there. This is the pit heap that we're going to have a look at for a start. Then we're going to wander around across the top of the quarry to this particular pit heap. And this is where the wash pool is. That was the old 1860 colliery. Now, you may not have noticed this, but if we look on there, we have a set of rails going in again. Now, is that the shunt end pit? Possibly, probably. I can't see it just being a siding somehow or other, can you? So I'd never noticed that on the 1947 map before. So we'll get on the ground now and have a good look round. Right, so basically it's absolutely chucking it down with rain. It's an horrible day, but we've had to come up before this, up at Scoutmore, and this is, they're about to pair this off, and what we think this is, well we're sure it is where Duckworth had the drift. It's on the 1844 map, and it's about to be destroyed. I think Ronnie's just found something. So forgive the bad pictures, but I've no tripod neither. You just have to put up with what we've got. No.
I thought it might be something, it might not.
No, it is.
Is it?
Gotta be.
Yeah, so fell in then.
So this, Ronnie, must be lying at drift here then?
Yeah.
Where all these rush beds are.
Looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say it were really, you know.
And maybe that it shows two cabins on the first map, one over here. Yeah. Maybe that's the remains of the other cabin over there, Ronnie.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's all about to disappear. So this is on the 1844 map. And certainly they were working it in 1853 because Dickinson marks it on. So this is looks like the outcrop, and that there looks like the remains of an old cabin. I'm sorry I'm shaking, like I say I've got no tripod, but this is going to go soon, so we have to make advantage of what we've got. So look at this cabin. Well, it may not be, but the old map does show two cabins up here and then a track leading away, and obviously everything's decimated. They put the road in for the quarry there, and they're just going to be coming through here in the next couple of days, aren't we? There's the drift. You can see it falling in through the wall. What a shame it's the day as it is. See all the coal knocking about in the tip here. And it looks like they've had a little bit of a set edge just up there. Just the other side of these stones here. Looks like they've had a set edge and then the road going off. Obviously the road's now quarried away through the track. But certainly an historic site about to disappear. Well, it's slowly beginning to lift the clag a little bit, but it's not a good day for filming. It's just that we've come across today, me and Ronnie, because they're stripping the quarry off and we're going to lose that old drift there. It's going to go. And when I first came a couple of years ago, I never got to that site. It's not an exact science what's across here. There's another drift here which isn't on any plan, but it's definitely a drift. I'll show you. You can see where the flagstone's actually gone under the wall, and you can see where the drift fell in behind, but there's massive heaps here as well. And I apologise for the drone shots. It's not brilliant, but the wind, you see, in the damp, I wasn't getting Desi out over that quarry and him plummeting to the bottom. It just wasn't happening. But we can't come back on a nicer day to get that shot again because it won't be there. Probably by the end of the week it'll be gone, but we can get all this lot on another day. See, this is the old pit top, and you can see where those rushes go. That's obviously a road down, and there's a sizable heap. And the next one along is what has been used as a wash pool, but it certainly was a pit before that. And the plan that we have of Dickinson, it could be the one that Duckworth went to in the 1860s after he worked this drift out. We'll have a wander across. Right, we're up here at the next place, and this is what people say is a wash pool, and I'm quite cognizant about that it probably has been a wash pool. There's a big word for you. Don't you get some big words on this channel? Don't ask me to spell it though. So yeah, it will have been a wash pool later, but it has been the pit. They've utilised the old buildings. There's a couple of smoking guns on the top to tell you why. So what has been rejuvenated as a wash pool and what is still part of the old colliery and the set. This obviously, taking it on face value, is where the carts have come up. This has been the coal set, where the tubs have come out on the top. You can see the old pit top up above there, and the massive stones and the retaining wall there. And the carts have come up here and they've loaded them and away back down to Scout to Turn and Scout Bottom, or Scout Fall, whatever you're down there. So we'll have a look on the top and I'll show you where the drifts were. And look at this lovely retaining wall. Look how that's been bolstered up. So I suppose it's going to be ideal for its new use, but up there is where the pit top was. And you can see where the roadway goes back, and those heaps, that big heap we can just see there is where I've just been, where there's another drift going out under the wall. And Ronnie's gone down to find a tub that's down on the old quarry incline. He can give me 20 years, and he's the one that's gone all the way down there, is Ronnie. Looking across to where Scout Fold was, and just see him in the distance. So this is where I've possibly, it's difficult to tell for sure off Dickinson's map, but this could possibly be where Duckworth came in the 1860s. You'll not see it on a map as a colliery, and there doesn't seem to be any proper plans of this particular bit. It just gives it as all workings on the colliery plan. And the smoking gun to just the wash pool theory is this behind us. You can see there's definitely been the drift there. It looks like two, but I know John Davis, he had the theory that maybe one was a stable. Now we've nothing to back that up that they ever use horses here, but certainly there's been something here. So it's been the old pit top, and it's then had a later use as probably a wash pool. Now we've got lots and lots of research to do about this still. I know that John Duckworth signed a lease with the Earl of Derby to work his collieries in 1826, but I've got to go to the records office to look at that lease, because it's not quite clear where those pits were, because the Duckworths worked these on Scout Moor, Sheeper Bottom, and down towards Cobhouse. Is it Cobhouse? Further down into Shuttleworth itself, and of course at Sheep House, because Lawrence Duckworth owned Sheep House. So who was John Duckworth? Well, we do know a little bit about John. That for a start, he was a publican from Shuttleworth, and John was on the Rothsay Castle that we're talking about with the Benjamin Lees, which was a steamer, a paddle steamer that sailed from Liverpool to Beaumaris, and it sunk. And we've got a detailed record of John Duckworth's escapades on the wreck of the Rothsay Castle and how he survived. So I'm going to do a proper one on that to match up with the one I'm currently under production with Benjamin Lees. Now that was 1831, and John Duckworth died around about 1836. We know a little bit about him. He was a strong, fit man, pardon me, standing about 6 foot at least, very vigorous. And he was a driving force obviously behind these collieries. When he died, they seem to have passed into Lawrence Duckworth. Now the trouble with Duckworth is it's such a common name up here. Duckworth. We had a Mr. Duckworth that was a teacher at school. So was Lawrence his brother? I've tried to do a family tree, but it's so difficult to think you've got it right. Nevertheless, the collieries on John's death passed to Lawrence, and Lawrence lived at Sheephay, and he was also a stone dealer, and they run the pits up until after Lawrence died. It was then the Exors up until certainly the 1890s. And then the Whittakers seem to have took over Scout Moor collieries. The Whittakers who run Scout Moor Quarry at the time, they took over the pits. And after these drifts here finished, they put the incline up past Newgate Farm up to the top of well, that's now been quarried away. That's what a lot of people think of as Scout Moor Colliery, but obviously it was here as well. And also, we're not going to go today because of the mist, on the top of Whittle Pike. Down here they worked the Sandrock mine. The Sandrock coal is only about 18 inch, 15, 18 inch here. But up on the top there was the Lower Mountain mine. Right round the top of Whittle Pike there's a little patch of it, and that's 2 foot too. And they've literally worked all the way under Whittle Pike. Look, Whittle Pike is sat on nothing but bits of screens of coal. And I'd love to know how they got the coal down from there. And that finished, I think, in the 1880s. So this is just a bit of a whistle-stop look. We need to do a lot more research at the records office to see if we can find any more, not just plans, but records really of what they actually did, and certainly the beginnings of the collieries.